Alright, so I want to make a video updating everyone as usual, as well as get to some other important stuff. So getting right into it here, Canada is up to 47,543 cases with 2,619 dead. Alberta had 216 new cases yesterday, so I believe that's slightly worse than yesterday, although we're still trending about flat over the last week or so. We did have a few days up over 300, I think. We've had a day, around 250. I think 2 days ago we were around this number. So the curve is flattened, and the first thing, like the point of the lockdowns was to flatten the curve. The point of the lockdowns wasn't to flatten the curve so the hospitals wouldn't be overwhelmed, basically. And that all the people, like I say, that keep supporting this kind of stuff, you've clearly contradicted yourselves, like I say, because the main reason of locking things down was to flatten the curve so hospitals aren't going to be overwhelmed. Hospitals in almost everywhere aren't even close to being overwhelmed. I mean, there's hospitals in the states that are at risk of having to shut down because there's not enough people. Um, and like I seen hospitals, like I mean, I had a family member that was in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks unrelated to this, and they were in three different hospitals because they started out in a small town hospital, ended up in the U of A hospital, and they didn't let him visit in the U of A, but the other two very quiet, and he said in the U of A one it was also relatively quiet too. So hospitals in Alberta, aside from maybe the odd one in Calgary, are not overwhelmed. Hospitals in most of Canada, not overwhelmed. So again, this whole closure thing, not really making a whole lot of sense anymore. Um, like I say, too, Calgary is the main area we have to worry about, and it's the one size fits. Like I keep mentioning it, but the one size fits all mentality is very much bothers me, and I think it bothers anybody with critical thinking skills. Again, we're testing quite a few people, so I mean it's only a matter of time. I mean, we're not going to be able to test everyone, but with the amount of people we're testing, it doesn't really make sense on top of the already doesn't make sense, keeping things locked down. But um, as I get into some other things here, we'll talk more. So this is from Peter Schiff. He talks about so he says, I saw this chart in an article on Zero Hedge. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, this one's worth trillions. The 2000 bubble didn't end well, and the 2020 bubble will be even worse. Now, again, this is a chart that goes on to show that we are at much more of a bubble right now than we were in 2000 or 2008. And I mean, you see there's 2008, you can see 2000 there was a big bubble. And the problem is that the bigger it gets, the worse that the crash is when you crash. And the problem is the bigger it gets, the more likely a crash is. And I've been warning and warning and warning, and it still seems that there's so many people out there that are just completely retarded when it comes to this kind of stuff. And that I think there's a famous, infamous, famous, whatever you want to, depending on how you interpret it, photo of someone at one of these in the lockdown protests saying, well, your economy isn't worth a life. And I think that's what the sign said. And it just goes to show that there's a lot of people that actually believe that, but people who actually believe that are absolutely insane, like absolutely insane, in that it's not about people, these rich guys in the back, twirling their mustaches, trying to make money. That's not what the economy is. The economy is how we get through. The economy is how we feed ourselves. And like I say, the problem, this charts like this go to show it, that the longer we do this, the worse the crash is going to be. But the problem is those kind of people, their ability to recognize and perceive threats, especially down the road, is literally non-existent. Literally non-existent. They only see what's right in front of them right here and now. If we don't keep things locked down, old people are going to die. But yet they completely miss the fact that if we keep things shut down, more people are going to die. Not only, I mean, look at, like, I talked about it. The UN is warning that hundreds of millions of people could starve to death, mainly in the poorer countries in the world. because food production is going way down. I mean, look at the plant in Calgary. Now I know that plant in Calgary doesn't supply places in Africa, but the problem is that it's a domino effect. You know, when one thing struggles, the next thing struggles, the next thing struggles, and before you know it, everywhere is struggling. So that's the main problem with that. But like I say, that's something that we really need to keep an eye out, because it doesn't make any sense, and we need to figure this stuff out, and we need to get the economy back open. But anyway, here is the next thing I wanted to talk about here. This is from Brian Lilly. He goes on to say, so a church near London, Ontario follows all the rules. No one gets out of their car. No one rolls down their windows. Social distancing rules are followed, and the cops still threaten them. This is how you lose public support for the measures in the first place. Now, again, I've been pointing this out. This isn't about public safety. This is about the government taking as much power as they possibly can. This is a political grab. This is about experimenting, with how much freedoms, how much liberty, how much all of that stuff we can take from people and them still put up with it. How draconian can we be and still convince people to support it? And this kind of stuff doesn't make any sense too. Like, people should be able to do this kind of stuff. Like, the people that still support the hardest of the hard, we're all gonna die if we don't keep things locked down crowd, still should support this kind of stuff. And like I say, it doesn't make any sense that this kind of stuff's going on. And the only reason that I think that it is going on, most logical conclusion, is that the government has nefarious intentions. They're trying to take as much power as they possibly can. This is from Charlie Kirk. Now, this is something I've talked about before too, but I wanted to talk about it more. Um, Pennsylvania just had to erase 200 virus deaths because they had decided to include probable deaths from the virus in their official death count. New York City is doing the same thing. What is going on? Now, this is something that's more than likely going on. Now, this is the States, but this kind of stuff's probably going on in Canada too. I don't see any. I mean, it may not be to the same extent, but even if it's just in the states numbers are still included in the death or the mortality rate. So if you get rid of this, all of a sudden the mortality rate goes down even more. And that's what I keep saying too, is that for the end the lockdown crowd to be right, as far as we should open up the economy, um, the death rate should consistently be going down as we learn more and more about the virus. For the let's keep everything locked down or we're all going to die crowd to be right, the death rate should be going up, up, and up, and up as we get more data. And the exact opposite is happening. So that's why whenever someone points out that I'm wrong about the topic, it's just you're arguing literally against facts. You're arguing against clear and obvious evidence. For the end the lockdown crowd to be right, and then we should open things back up, the numbers should consistently be getting less and less lethal, less and less serious, and that's exactly what's happening. So again, I just wanted to point that out. Last thing here is from Donald Trump. He goes on to say, why should the people and taxpayers of America be bailing out poorly run states like Illinois, for example, and cities in all cases Democrat run and managed, when most other states are not looking for bailout help? I'm open to discussing anything but just asking. Now, you have all these people on the left that they can't, they hate bailouts when it comes to the rich. Now, I don't support that either. But the problem is that the left solution is socialism. The actual solution is the free market, because in the free market you wouldn't get bailed out, and in the free market it would be even better, because businesses wouldn't be bailed out. People that are better or more likely to be better at running those businesses would take over those businesses. Take the airlines for example. You know, a lot of these airlines are in massive amounts of debt. They're running on thin margins. They have terrible track records. They would go bankrupt, and the problem is people seem to think that if you let them go bankrupt, the planes are all just going to magically disappear, and that's not what would happen. Someone who is better at running things would buy up the airlines, create their own company, and more than likely have a better job or do a better job of doing it. And the benefit of that is that they would make more money, and they would more than likely be more competitive because they're better at running things. They would be able to charge less. So it's a win-win. And the problem is that that's why that's why you have these people on the left that hate this kind of stuff, is because they can't have any examples of the free market working. They desperately need to clamp down and cover up any examples of the free market working. Now, when it comes to the whole states things, none of these people I mean, take Canada for example. Do any of these does Quebec or Ontario want to give money to Alberta? Like that, I'm laughing because just how crazy that suggestion is. So the idea that they should be bailing out poorly run states, namely the Democrat run states, is laughable. Let them fail. You know, the people voted for these policies. It's not like they didn't vote for it. Letting people suffer consequences to something when they made the decision that led to those consequences isn't immoral or unethical in any way, shape, or form. It's not. And people say, oh, well, people, you're going to be poor and you're not going to get health. When you supported that kind of stuff, you reap what you sow. And the reason why you need to let that happen is that people will recognize in the future when going to vote, hey, this state that completely collapsed, implemented these policies. I'm not going to vote for that. But on the other hand, if you bail them out every time they screw up, people's like, I don't care. I want my free stuff. And again, that's something that should be completely nonpartisan, but for whatever reason, I mean, the left just all they care about is free stuff, so that they'll abandon all ethics, all reason, all evidence to get their free stuff. Um, but anyway, this is like I said, this is something that we all should be able to agree on, and it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Every state should be able to again, uh, and every state, every province should be able to shouldn't be bailed out. Shouldn't be bailed out. But on the other, I mean, people point out to, well, you guys in Alberta are asking for a bailout. No, we're not. We're just asking to keep the money that we earned. And not only that, we've contributed what hundreds of billions of dollars over the years, more than we've got out. So if anything, yeah, we should be bailed out. Like there, you know, the people that deserve to be bailed out are the people that have put in a lot more than they've got out, because if you give them a little bit of money, you're still way ahead when it comes to them. If you give money to people who are massive net negatives, then you're even more of a net negative. So the idea doesn't make any sense whatsoever, like any sense whatsoever. um, and like I said, the reason why this is important is that if you bail people out after they make decisions, after they make bad decisions, you guarantee you get more bad decisions, which is why we can't have welfare, which is why we can't have free healthcare. Because if you pay people, and by having free healthcare and by having welfare, you're paying people to be unhealthy, you're paying people to be poor. Let's not kid ourselves. That's why you can't have that kind of stuff, because people view that as, hey, yeah, I'm getting paid to be poor, I'm getting paid to be unhealthy. And the simple reason is that they make more money, like they make more money doing it and things like that. And it's the same with these kind of states. It's like, hey, the people that run these states, the higher ups in government, they make a ton of money, and they have a lot of power, they have a lot of influence. So that's a very appealing job, especially for people with nefarious intentions. So the way that they can get elected is one of two reasons. You can work your butt off, you can do the right thing, you can, advocate for real, actual change, or you can just promise people free stuff with the expense of having a massive deficit and going bankrupt. Which one are people going to choose? You can have the one that actually takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, or you can have the one that takes little to no effort. Well, of course, people are going to take the one that has little to no effort. Like, why would you put in more work, than you have to? It doesn't make any sense. It's natural for humans to want to do the least amount of work possible to elicit the greatest amount of change. And that's the problem with government, is you have two ways of going about things. You can promise people free stuff, and that's basically all you have to do to get elected. Or you can actually go around, campaign your butt off, work 12-hour days, promise for real change that's going to work in the long run. Well, the problem is that that's pretty hard. It's impossible to compete with free stuff, basically. And that's the problem, like I say, with welfare, with all this kind of stuff, is you can't compete with free stuff. um, but anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Um, Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last thing, as always, check out my BitChute channel as well. I'm actually growing a decent amount there, so check me out there as well. I'm getting some decent views. Like I say, there it is.